bleed green? Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. Ready? This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go!
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50-plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go! Let's go!
EAGLES, Eagles.
It is a football Friday here on Birds 365. You got Mac and Mac, John McMullen and Jody McDonald. We appreciate you putting your brackets down for a couple hours to listen to a little football talk here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Johnny Mac, after watching 12 hours of college basketball yesterday, glad to be getting into football talk with you again this morning. The Eagles believe in Paris. Does John
They always
McMullen
have.
believe
They always
in Paris?
have. No, I don't. It's funny. This is another player the Eagles almost drafted when they drafted J.J. Arcega-Whiteside back in whenever it was, 2019-ish, I think. It came down to J-Jaw and Paris Campbell. And at the time, Howie Roseman and Joe Douglas, they wanted to draft Paris Campbell, and it was Jeffrey Lurie kind of steered them in the wrong direction. You know what? I can't even say it's wrong direction because neither of them developed. However, Paris Campbell's at least still in the NFL, so I guess he gets a slight advantage.
Yes.
But yeah, neither one would have worked probably. So yeah, had some injury issues, but he's, I talk about draft proofing the roster. This to me is an example of that. It's funny. I wrote about the Eagles had 3 spots over at Sports Illustrated. They still needed to address to draft proof the roster: slot corner, third receiver, and swing tackle on offense. And Howie, in those 24 hours, he got the slot corner and he got the wide receiver 3 to at least, so you go into the draft and say, it's the 4th, 5th round, whatever, and your pick's coming up. I need somebody to compete at third receiver. You don't have to do that because you bring in a guy who's at least competent in theory. We'll see if it works out. He had one decent season in his walk year in Indianapolis on his rookie deal, caught 60 passes. What's funny, he was a really fast guy coming out of college, and it has not shown up in the NFL. What the catches he has made, not a good yards per reception. Now, part of that is he generally plays in the slot, so it's shorter routes. It's, if you're not getting yards after catch, it can look ugly. But last year with the Giants, he was really bad. Now, again, the quarterback situation we all know, but he ran a 4.31 coming out. So it's never shown, it was like 9 yards a catch in Indianapolis in his final year. Last year was like 5 yards a catch, was like a running back. I wouldn't get excited about it, but is he better than Quez Watkins and Olamide Zaccheaus? Maybe a slight upgrade.
Right, which we'll only see when training camp opens up. Like you said, draft proofing the roster is smart. He's a veteran. He's been there. Yes, at one point the Eagles did like him. They couldn't like him that much because last year, if you thought he was better than Quez Watkins, you would have got out and signed him as a free agent wide receiver off his lone good year in Indianapolis. You didn't. The Giants did. So I'm not buying into the long-awaited arrival of Paris Campbell. You could have done last year. They didn't.
No, I'm just pointing out they did like him in 2019. But as again, 2019 to 2024 might as well be, 50 years.
That's a long time ago in NFL years. You are 100% correct. I'm not knocking or mocking the signing. No one can. We don't know the details yet. All we know is it's a one-year deal. That's it. You don't know.
I'm pretty sure it's going to be for the veteran minimum. Not 100%, but pretty darn sure. So, I mean, financially, it's not going to be, they can cut him. They can move on. If he plays well in camp and he earns a job, good for Paris Campbell, and they're not able to get an upgrade in the draft, good for him. If not, you can move on and go to the next guy.
Right. So I don't think this was the savior of the third wide receiver spot. It's an option. And you need options. You like to have options. And if his is an inexpensive one-year option, that's a good place to be. We'll see if it's how many players have signed now for veteran minimum? Not a lot. I still think we're in quote unquote phase 2, which means you're getting a little bit more than the veteran. When you get toward the after the draft free agent phase, then guess what? You take whatever the hell. If a team offers you a contract, you snap it up and you take the minimum and you go to camp and you fight like hell to make a roster. Not like I'm saying it's going to be a $4 million deal, but there could be. And the Eagles have been very good with this during this offseason. And it'd be very easy to write incentives into Paris Campbell's contract because you can basically give him any kind of number. It's not going to count against the cap because he was so bad with the New York Giants last year. 20 catches, like you said, 5 and change yards.
5.2 yards. I just looked it up. 5.2 yards a catch.
That's for a wide receiver, not a running back or a tight end. That's a wide receiver. That's borderline embarrassing. So if you wanted to give him incentives in the deal, you could do that because they wouldn't count against the cap. He'd have to go out and earn them because they compare it to what he's done previously and they lean heavily on what you did the previous year. We did next to nothing with the Giants. The old action about the Bears and the quarterback positions where quarterbacks go to die. You'd say that about the New York Giants the last 4 or 5 years at the wide receiver position. Yeah, they do nothing, and Paris Campbell filled right in there last year by doing next to nothing with the Giants. But like you said, John, it's a good signing because it gives them depth, and depth sometimes equates to nothing. Sometimes it ends up paying dividends. I'm perfectly fine with the signing of a Paris Campbell as a depth guy, as long as it's not a move him into the top 51 salary type deal where you actually have to redo your math on where you're at on the salary cap.
Well, I do think he'll be in the top 51. The top 51 cutoff for the Eagles, let me double check, is Tanner McKee, 961. 961. 630. So Tanner McKee is the cutoff. So I don't even know what the veteran minimum is. Probably 1.1, 1.2. Maybe it went up because of the. I have to look that up. But yeah. So he'll count against the top 51, and they'll lose about $200,000-300,000 of cap space. Now you're right. They might have some incentives, but and even Oren Burks. If you saw Oren Burks, it was up to $2.5 million 1 year, up to 2. He probably got a better minimum deal with some incentives. Right. And that you're right. Campbell might get some incentives, but I'm pretty sure the base is going to be better than minimum. We'll see how it shakes out, but yeah, he'll count against, but at the bottom of the top 51. So you lose a couple $100,000, but that's fine at this time of year. I mean, guys who are going to make the team. Younger players like I'm looking at the cap now. Moro Ajomo is going to make the team unless something drastic happens. Eli Ricks probably going to make the team. Ben Van Sumeren probably going to make the team. They don't even count against the salary cap right now because of where they are on the list. So, plenty of things to shake up, but the top 51 rule in the offseason applies.
And the other thing about Paris Campbell, and I'm just stating a fact here. I'm not even giving an opinion because I really didn't watch Paris Campbell return kicks for the New York Giants last year. The kick returner position, if the NFL decides to change its kickoff procedure and put in this XFL rule that allows basically almost borderline forces kickoff returns, that's going to become a viable position again.
Yeah.
This past year,
Yeah.
Boston Scott was the kickoff returner for the Eagles. Yeah, so he almost never returned any kicks. Everybody kicks the ball out of the end zone. You don't even bother trying to catch it. You just let it bounce and you move on. It was, I believe, 20.4% of kicks in the NFL were returned last year, which means 4 out of every 5. It's a touchback. They're going to, if this rule change passes, that's going to change this year. There will be no more touchbacks, no more fair catches. You're going to have to get into the end zone and watch the ball bounce out of the end zone. You're going to be obligated to catch the football. It's going to have to bounce out of the end zone for you to get a touchback, which means they are trying to get kickoff returns back into it. I know he's done it in his career, and he did it last year for the Giants. I without knowing how this kickoff is going to work going forward, I've read it 20 times now, and I still don't completely understand how I think it's going to play when they actually get out there on the field. But somebody's going to need to do it.
Yeah.
Is it going to be more of a punt return type guy than a kickoff return type guy? I don't know that, but Paris Campbell does have experience, and Eagles don't have a lot of guys on their roster that have kick return experience.
Yeah, and it is interesting because just from the I haven't seen it. I did watch a little XFL, but I didn't watch it religiously, and it seems like more of a punt type environment when it comes to returns because the offense and defense are lined up close together. They can't move until the ball hits the ground, the returner. So in theory, kick returners were different than punt returners. And that's why it's somebody like Devin Hester did both at such a high level. That's kind of rare. It doesn't happen. You usually have good kick returners, good punt returners. It's like slot corners and outside corners. The punt returners, their goal is to make the first guy miss and then be short area quickness and be very elusive and then get going. Whereas the kick returners, it was foot in the ground, bang, go. And then if you can break the first tackle. So you needed some power and then you had long speed. And I always point to Cordero Patterson. He's the best example. He'd break the first tackle. And then if you didn't have contained, he was just gone. He had that long speed. So a little bit different in theory. If I were Michael Clay and I'm projecting, I would think it's more of a Britton Covey type role than a Cordero Patterson type role if they change the rules the way they're saying they may change the rules.
Right. And to be truthful with you, John, if you've got a good grasp on it, you want to say you believe that's going to be the case, go for it. I'm not even I don't understand it well enough to say that. I really don't. I need to see it.
Yeah, you got to see it play out. You definitely. I'm just saying, in my mind,
right?
You kind of,
and that's what the Eagles have to do. They have to figure it out ahead of time. They have to make a borderline commitment to the type of player that they're going to use for that return. And I don't know what type of player fits it best. I think experience in either one, returning punts or returning kickoffs, is a good thing rather than somebody just trying it for the first time. And I give Paris Campbell at least this much. He's done some kickoff returning. Will he be good with it in this new format if the NFL goes to? Your guess is as good as mine. But I can say I think he's better at it than somebody who's never done it before. That's the one little plus to the resume I'll give Paris Campbell. At least he's done kickoff returns in his NFL.
By the way, I got to look up Boston Scott. But by the way, yeah, the kickoff returns he was at 8 for the Giants last year, 8 total, and Boston was probably, I don't know, I'm guessing 12 or 13. That's how meaningless the kickoff return has become.
It was
in the NFL, and that's why they're thinking about changing the rule, obviously.
And I will give Eagle fans credit. And when I say Eagle fans, I mean all Eagle fans: the good, the bad, the indifferent, the smart, ahead of the curve, the absolutely ridiculous, all in one big pile and putting everybody, including all our good streamers here on Birds 365. I was proud to say, prior to the Paris Campbell signing and or after, I got not one tweet. I wasn't on WIP. Yes, I was on the day before, and it wasn't my show. Not one, hey, we could get T. Higgins to be our number 3 wide receiver, because
you didn't get one. I'm surprised.
Not one. Nor did I get one. You know, we could get OBJ. Tweet.
Oh, that's hey. I'm glad, man. I'm surprised by that.
Exactly.
By the way, Boston's got 8 kickoff returns as well last year.
8 apiece between he and Paris.
8 apiece.
Yeah, that's where kickoff returns were in the National Football League, but it could be a whole nother story. We'll have to see when the owners' meetings come down and they actually get to vote on potential rule changes. I do want to give the nod to Eagle fans, because they do fall into the big name trap altogether too often. No one went down that road, at least not so far this year. And now, with the massive signing of Paris Campbell, I have faith that no one will go down that road. Yeah, then again, maybe not. I may get that tweet later on today. What do you mean no OBJ? Why can't we get OBJ? He can step in. No, he doesn't need to step here. He won't be stepping in here. The Eagles are where they are with their wide receivers. That is just one topic we're going to talk about with our first guest. Forget about Tuesdays with Maury. We got Fridays with Damo here on Birds 365. Longtime Eagle beat writer, national writer, doing it these days for the 33rdteam.com and us here at JAKIBSports.com. Paul Domwich, Hall of Fame selector and Hall of Fame writer, in my estimation, joins us next here on Birds 365.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy sports, and certainly the easiest when you're watching the NBA. And the NBA playoffs are almost here, and you can win money making picks. What are you waiting for? Sign up on UnderdogFantasy.com and use the promo code WIN. An Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN. Get ready for the NBA and get ready for the NBA playoffs. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer 3 major services, the first one being basement waterproofing, the second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs, and then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News?
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES. Eagles.
He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. That's Mac and Mac Birds 365. We are joined by one of the most astute football minds and writers in the country. He's been doing it for a long time. Mr. Paul Domowitch joins us each and every single Friday. Now that I buttered you up, Domo, please explain the hip drop tackle.
Oh, good. I'm glad you went here because I need somebody with Paul's experience to explain to me what the hell the NFL is doing. The players don't want it. Nobody wants it. Everybody's on there complaining, and the NFL, we got to do this. We got to do this. Why? Why, Dama?
Well, I'm assuming their injury numbers show that it causes injuries. The problem is with the hip drop, it's not something guys do intentional. Like when you grab the back of a jersey, and drag a guy down, your mind knows you're doing it. The hip drop's a little tougher to abstain from. I mean, you're just trying to tackle a guy. You grab him around the waist and then you go down. You're not trying to do anything to him nefarious. You're just trying to tackle him.
Yeah.
And it's a danger. Guys get hurt that way. Trying to think
Mark Andrews.
Mark Andrews got hurt that way,
and I forget who tackled Mark, but I'm sure it was a defensive back trying to drag him down at all. Mark's a big, powerful guy, and he got a deep back just trying to get him on the ground, basically.
It typically is a smaller guy trying to tackle a bigger guy. But again, he's not trying to do anything, dirty or hurt him. It just kind of happens, and maybe the numbers show, you're right. They are trying to be, it's a violent game. It's a dangerous game. People are going to get hurt. You make a mistake when you try to clean it up too much to the point where you think you can get rid of all injuries like they're doing with kickoff returns. It's only a matter of time before they completely eliminate the kickoff.
Yeah, no, I actually think they're going the other way. And I said this to John yesterday, and I want to know if you concur. The problem with it is, it sounds like we all have problems. Come on, it's still football, right? We're still playing a tackle game, and we're going to legislate tackles, which just boggles the mind to begin with. But the thing that's going to make it even worse is, Damo, it's a really subjective call. You have to decide whether the guy is just trying to make a legitimate tackle or if he is specifically putting himself down further to give himself a better angle and leverage to pull the guy down. That's going to be real subjective. I don't know if I could do it in slow motion instant replay and then go, yeah, oh no, he was trying to pull him down, as compared to full speed. And you're going to ask the refs to make this call in full speed. That's going to come down. It's really subjective. And you're going to hear the boos raining down in stadiums when that flag comes out of the ref's pocket.
Yeah. It's as difficult as, the helmet hit where, when the ball carrier drops his head, you have no way of knowing whether, the intention, whether he was trying to use his head or whether it would just happen to be that, the guy with the ball dropped down and there was an incidental collision. So, yeah, it doesn't, we bitch about the mistakes the officials make, yet things like this make their job even more difficult.
Impossible. They make it impossible. And I'll get to the gambling stuff in a second because this opens them up for even more problems in my estimation. But I'm taking a shot at Troy Vincent here, Damo, because great Eagles corner at one point. I'm not talking about, but now he's obviously one of the big wigs in the NFL. He did a conference call yesterday talking about the hip drop tackle amongst other rule changes, and he gave this bullshit, and I'm saying bullshit. 20 to 25% greater injury rate. Okay. Anytime you're at that level, what is it? Is it 20, 21, 22, 20? What is it, Troy? So right there, I'm calling. If I could raise my hand, Dom, I would have said bullshit. And where are these studies? And why can't we find these studies? And why can't we see these studies? I do not understand this league. Now, I'm also at the other end. I don't know what their end game is, because I know they don't care about players' health. They won't change the turf. They'll battle that till the end of death, because it will cost an extra couple $1 million to replace turf with grass. So they don't care about the players. It's always about legal indemnification, but is there some grandiose going on that I don't recognize or realize? But 20 to 25, bullshit.
They just have people with too much time on their hands. I mean, the competition committee generally are the people that come up with some of these rule changes with regard to player safety, and they're the ones that do the studies on statistics, or at least they have injury statistics, or at least have people that do them for them. But you're right. I mean, you go back to, for years, this league turned the other way on concussions, even though they knew that they caused long-term brain trauma and CTE. And now we're making a big deal of hip drop tackles. It's kind of ludicrous.
I do think it's legit. I think they have a reasonable purpose. I think they're trying to remove some injuries. Key players, they got lucky in that no major quarterback went down with this type play, because they're not usually out there running on the edge where you would see a hip drop tackle. Yeah. But a guy like Mark Andrews is a big-time player for the Ravens. But they don't think it all the way through, because are you now only going to throw the flag when a guy doesn't get up? So are you waiting? Uh-oh, he's hurt. Now the flag comes out. No, you can't do that. You have to call it as it happens. You have to react immediately if you're the referee. You can't just say, well, we want to put a procedure in place to take these potential injury led to tackles out of the game. You can't do it. Not in real time. So I don't think it was nefarious or anything like that. I think they had a reasonable reason to think about it and potentially put it into place. But
can I also add, there's always unintended consequences. If you guys watch Kirby Joseph of the Lions last year, he tore, it was TJ Hawkinson first. He tore his ACL and his MCL going low after Hawkinson caught a pass. And then 2 weeks later, tore Tyler Higbee's ACL and MCL, exact same injury, exact same hit, because he's going low, because he's not allowed to go high where he'll get 15 yards. And all of a sudden, you got two big-time tight ends with year-long injuries. It's unbelievable to me, the lack of I don't know what you want to call it, but the lack of common sense, basically, of this league. There's always unintended. And Kirby Joseph was like, because he got criticized. Oh, you're a dirty player. What do you want me to do? I can't go high. Now I can't go low. What are the flags? When are the flags? When are we getting the flag football, Paul Domowitz?
Soon, very soon.
All right, Dom, let's talk about, we had you on last Friday. The quarterback maneuvering at backup quarterback didn't happen till after you joined us last Friday morning.
Mm-hmm.
Kenny Pickett is in. I got no problems with the acquisition. It makes some sense. It's kind of a Howie type move. Same thing they did with Gardner Minshew a couple of years back. However, on the same day, Justin Fields gets traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers after Kenny Pickett comes here, which means Justin Fields was available at what turns out to be a lesser price than Kenny Pickett, but only 1 year left on his contract as compared to two. The comparison between the two was on point and only natural, because they both got dealt basically on the same day, a couple hours apart. If both were available, did the Eagles get the right guy, or should they have focused their attention on Chicago instead of Pittsburgh?
Well, I mean, I think Pickett's a better overall passer. It depends on what you're looking for. It surprised me a little bit in that, when you've got a starter like Jalen, the tendency has been to have the backup be a guy, for the most part, who has some sort of mobility, which obviously Fields would be more like Jalen than Kenny Pickett. I mean, Kenny's not going to run around on you for you. So, but he's got 22 starts. I mean, the numbers aren't very good. 13 and 13, I think, on touchdowns and interceptions, low yards per attempt in that Pittsburgh offense. So, I mean, I don't know what we'll find out eventually if he gets the chance to play at some point, if he's, how good he can be. I liked him coming out of college. I like this move. I mean, Fields is an intriguing guy because of the athletic ability, but there are a lot of people out there, and I'm assuming the Eagles were one of them, that just wonder if he's ever going to be become a good enough passer and decision maker to be able to play the position.
It's interesting because you're right about, styles of quarterbacks, and sometimes you want the similar type. Baltimore's done that in the past, trying to get somebody. You're never going to get somebody with the talent of Lamar Jackson, but similar traits. So if he goes down, you can play the same offense instead of shifting everything. There's other guys who like it. I think Nick Sirianni got a little bit bolstered when he had to play Gardner Minshew, and they saw it as a challenge. All right, can we get this guy ready this week? Blah, blah, blah. So you can go about it both ways, but does it tell you anything about Kellen Moore and the fact that he wants to add sort of more traditional, whether you want to call it a Shanahan type offense, play action, to this Eagles offense? When you make a decision, Kenny Pickett over Justin Fields, do they want to evolve Jalen Hurts into being more than what this offense has been, or just accentuate his strengths?
Well, I mean, I do think we might see less running from Jalen. I mean, they're still going to use him on the tush push, obviously.
Because that's back, by the way. Don't worry about the tush push.
Yeah, but when you look at Dak in Dallas with Kellen, I mean, he ran when he took some opportunities, but for the most part, he didn't run nearly as much as Jalen. So I do think we're gonna see a shift here where they're gonna tell I mean they've got to work with Jalen on being more patient, and that's why that's one of the reasons I think they brought in Barkley. This guy's going to be a receiver as much as a running back.
Even if they end up doing that and playing it that way, and Jalen runs a little bit less, we already saw a significant step backwards in that last year. If we see even another step back this year, it won't be because Kenny Pickett's here. And if they made the choice of take Kenny Pickett over Justin Fields because, hey, we're going to take a little bit less on the ground from Jalen this upcoming year, so therefore we don't need Fields.
No, I don't mean, but I don't think I'm saying they're changing because of Kenny Pickett. I'm saying, is that an indication they're changing?
Yeah. Number one, I don't think, if you're asking me to put a percentage on how much Kellen Moore had to do with that decision, less than 2. That's a 98% Howie Roseman move. I don't think Kellen, what do you think? What do you think I should do here? No, I think Howie went and got Kenny Pickett because he's always liked Kenny Pickett and said, now you deal with it, Kellen Moore. I don't think Kellen Moore and his offense was the determining factor in that. I think it was how he has guys that he remembers over time and then goes out and gets. And yeah, sorry, Damo, you, John, and everybody else who says Kenny Pickett was the better choice. You're just wrong, because Justin Fields is the better player. What you need to prioritize more than anything else, more than an extra year on the contract, more than how he went and looked at him through binoculars when he played a Thursday night against North Carolina, is you get
10
the better
overtimes,
player.
I believe.
And
Yeah,
overtime,
10
right?
overtimes.
Thank you for that, John. You take the better player, because if if Jalen Hurts is going to miss a month, you got to win those games. Eagles are a playoff team. They have to win those games. They can't worry about developing Kenny Pickett or.
But what if they both stink? And
who gives you the better chance? You're right. They both may stink. To this point, neither one of them has made an NFL career. I just
speaking of both stink, and when we're talking about Howie liking players in the draft, I want Paul Domowitch, I want you to go in your time machine and back to the year 2019. Were you Team Paris or Team J-Jaw?
I was neither, and they both turned out to be less than what was expected.
Yeah,
I don't have a problem with them signing Campbell, but I mean, I wouldn't plug him in as the number 3 receiver right now. He gives you some depth to the roster, just like Parker does at that position. But I don't understand. I mean, when you played for the Giants last year, which had a shortage of good wide receivers, and you averaged 5.2.
5.2. And by the way, he ran a 4.31 coming out of college. How do you average 5 yards? I don't even know how it's possible. They had a bad quarterback situation. We all understand that. It's one of the reasons people are excited about Saquon Barkley, but they had bad quarterbacks, and they did have bad quarterbacks. But 5 yards
that goes well with what Parker finished. I think ranked last each of the last 4 years.
4 years in separation. Yeah,
so,
next gen stats. Yeah,
I mean, this is how he moved. A lot of these are how he moves, in that he's going by what they saw in the draft. A lot of these guys they liked, and or they, Parker was the first.
By the way, that was supposedly Jeffrey Lurie mess up.
Yeah,
he's the one who pushed them towards J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. And as I recall at the time, his tremendous catching radius, that was the thought. Yeah, which he's a big guy, but yeah, it helps. Speaking of separation, the most separation I think I ever saw J-Jaw get was from his mom when she had the parasol at training camp. Oh, that's a shot. That's a shot.
Uncalled for.
Hey, plug in Greg Ward, and you got your number 3 receiver.
Well, that's Jody's wheelhouse, man. Greg, is Greg still here?
I think this is it. I think this is the year that Greg doesn't even get the practice squad in.
I don't think they signed Greg. That's interesting. I have to double check. Did they sign him to a futures deal?
I don't think so.
I didn't. No, you're right. I don't think I saw any announcement. So, well, there wouldn't have.
Yeah,
been.
Because they brought in a bunch of guys at wide receiver on futures deals, and so Shaquan Davis, Jacob Harris, Austin Watkins are on futures deals, along with Joseph Nada and Griffin Abear, who was already here.
Yeah.
No Greg Ward. Yeah, they didn't sign.
He'll end up signing with Kansas City and catch about 35 balls this year.
That's not a bad
thing. I'm predicting he's an Eagles assistant quality control coach. Sometime given a contract sometime in May. That's just a.
Greg's only 28, by the way. Seems like he's been here for as long as Damo and myself.
No,
I never understood that. He and Jalen had some chemistry. He's an ex-quarterback. He knew how to read zones. I mean, he just for a number of reasons. Including the fact that he had that one very good year for them. Where
he had like 6 touchdowns, over 50 catches, and I think it was
Nick had
at least 8 yards per catch as opposed to Paris Campbell's 5 yards per catch.
Yeah.
All right. I want to go back to the quarterback thing for just 1 second here, Damo, because we got a comment from one of our streamers here. From
Eli Manning will not be in the Hall of Fame.
That's true.
We got time to get to that.
I lost all credibility when I said that, Damo, according to one streamer. I lost all credibility by daring to suggest Eli Manning is not a slam dunk Hall of Fame. No credibility. 0. I'm down to 0.
Bunchy Carter said this, and I'm just bringing Bunchy up because he's not the only one that said it. I've taken calls about it on WIP. Fields would have been a problem. Let's say Jalen has a string of bad games where he isn't playing well in the preseason, and Fields looks good. There will be outside chatter about it and pressure on Jalen. Pickett is not a threat. Okay, if you just subscribe to that theory, Jalen not playing well, Fields is looking good. You got a quarterback controversy. Jalen not playing well, Pickett is. Well, it doesn't matter because Pickett's not a threat. Why the F would you sign Pickett? You're acknowledging Fields is a better quarterback. Because when he's actually playing well, we might have a controversy. If Kenny Pickett's playing well, who cares? It's Kenny Pickett. He can't play. Why would you sign Kenny Pickett if that's your line of logic?
Well, I don't think it is.
I don't think the Eagles. That's the Eagles. That's some, some dude's line of logic. I don't think that's the Eagles line.
I mean, I think.
Oh, you're telling me you think there is the possibility of a quarterback controversy if Jalen is struggling in preseason, doesn't seem to fit the.
I think that where's Justin Fields going to look good? Where and the preseason against insert name or in this guy's head? Where's he going to look good?
The only thing about Justin Fields and quarterback, if you're a lot of fans, okay, he goes into a game, finds a hole, running for his life, gains 70 yards on a run. People just become fascinated by this. Never mind that he can't see the field. Never mind, that he's not accurate. Just they see a play like that and they just. So I mean, but that's not what was. That had no bearing on the Eagles' decision. They just believe Kenny Pickett makes a better backup. He's a better quarterback. But I mean, I think in a lot of minds, that's what happens with a player like Justin Fields. I think for a while there, you saw, with Jalen, people love to watch him run. And now we're 4 years in, and it's like, well, you don't want him to get hurt, so let him develop as a passer. And
did you ever? I'm sure I answered this at one time on Monday every Friday we have you on. We all acknowledge that Jalen's running wasn't as good this year as last year, and there are probably 5 reasons, 6 reasons, 7 reasons why that was the case. In your mind, what was the number one reason why he didn't run the ball as effectively this year as he did last year, or as much?
Well, defenses. I mean, being aware.
You think the other team figured it out?
Yeah.
Huh?
I mean,
I don't think he had the same explosion as he typically did. I don't know. I don't know why, because people bring up the knee injury, but it was before that. So I don't know. Maybe there was something else he was dealing with. He's never going to admit it. So
see, and I don't agree with either of you. I think it was conceptual. Now, here's what I don't know. Was it Jalen's conception or was it the Eagles' conception? Because how many plays did we see last year where he gets forced out of the pocket, he starts upfield, and then he just sits down? Not even a slide. He just sits down. That tells me that's up here. He's made a conscious decision. I can't put myself at risk. Or the Eagles hammered it into his head. Jalen, you can't put yourself at risk. Plays the year before where he'd try and put a move on a guy, out-sprint a guy to the edge, and get a couple of yards before extending the football forward to get a couple more before it goes out of bounds. This year, he's just sitting on his rear end. That, to me, was the biggest reason.
Those decisions to slide or sit were not strictly his. I mean, he was told, we got to keep you healthy, and there's some wisdom in that. There were times when it looked like he could have got a few more yards before he slid, but I got no problem with that. And another thing, when you look at his numbers, Jody, I mean, you're right. He didn't run as well last year, and yet he had just as many rushing first downs as he did the year before. His average was down. His yards per carry average was down.
Touchdowns were up.
Yeah, the touchdowns were up. I mean, a lot of that has to do with the tush push.
Yes.
But the one thing he didn't have was the big 50. He didn't have as many 10, 15-yard plays as he did the year before when he would take off on a third down and have a big play. But so, I mean, he's still, the rushing first downs were still a critical part of their offense with him, him keeping the ball, keeping the, moving the chains.
But how many of those were on the tush push? You get.
Well, I don't. What were the?
Inches, you get a yard and a half. It's nice you get the extra yard, but you're not exactly taking up chunks of the field. You get a first down.
I'm putting you on the spot, Damo, but you probably remember how many tush pushes were there last year from the Eagles?
Don't remember the exact number, John, but it was slightly more than the year before.
Slightly more. That was my question, because if you look at Jalen Hurts, in 2021 he ran it 139 times. In 2022. He ran it 165 times, and last season he ran it 157.
Yeah.
So he's right in the same range.
Yeah.
And the tush pushes were only slightly more.
They were in the 30s last year, and I want to say they were the low 30s, upper 20s the year before.
Yeah.
The biggest difference with that tush push last year, I mean, you see people say, well, the teams that didn't use it also had success with the quarterback sneak, their percentage. The difference is most teams are only going to go for it if it's third and fourth or fourth and, inches, a foot, foot and a half.
Yard or less.
The Eagles by last year, if it's a full yard, they're going for it. They're not even thinking about it. And not only that, but the number of times last year on their tush pushes that they gained either 2 or 3 yards was just amazing. I mean, it just didn't happen with anybody else.
Also, I don't even know how you rate the success. Like the Eagles will go, if it's 3rd and 2, they might tush push. They know in the back of their mind they're going to go for it. Yeah. So when it's 3rd and 2 and you get a yard or a yard and a half, technically that's a failure on the tush push, but then you're going to tush push on 4th down and it's a success. So
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It'll be interesting this year with Jason gone.
Right. That's huge. How big do you think that's going to be? Do you think the percentage of conversion is going to drop slightly, significantly, precipitously? What are they going to do on the tush push without Kelsey?
I honestly don't know. I mean, they may figure out a way to use Landon Dickerson. I mean, he was a big part of it as well. But I mean, they may find a way to get him somehow, slant him. But yeah, it's big. We don't know what Cam Jurgens can do at center.
I think it's a bigger deal from this perspective. And I've talked to Jason about this. He steals, yardage. He steals yardage all the time because he's a veteran guy and you could get away. He got caught a couple times. He got caught with his hand in the cookie jar. He's trying to get a half yard, sticking the football out. Cam Jurgens isn't going to get away with that. A younger player. They're gonna have a much. I'm telling you, that's going to be an issue. I believe that because I tell the story of Tim Irwin. You might remember Tim Irwin, Damo. He was a longtime Minnesota right tackle, became an agent, very successful, played for like 15, 17 years, long time. And at the end of his career, Tim surprisingly held up well against Reggie White. And it was like, why? Because he tackled him. And he's been around for so long. They let him get away with it. And then all of a sudden, Corey Stringer comes in, much more talented player, rest in peace. Terrible situation. Much more talented player, but as a young player, they didn't let him get away with anything.
Yeah. The longer you've been in the league, the more you know what you can get away with.
Yes. And I think that's a big thing with Jason. I really do. We'll see how it shakes out. But I think there's going to be some growth. I think Cam's going to be fine overall. Don't get me wrong. But I think Cam Jurgens is he's got to earn some of that respect, or as you phrase it, maybe a better explanation. Learn what you can get away with. All
right. Damo, so far the Eagles have signed, correct me if I'm wrong here, John, I don't have it in front of me right now, 3 players to multi-year deals. CJ, GJ, Saquon, and Huff are the only players they've signed to multi-year deals. Every other free agent they've signed, I believe, is on a 1-year contract, correct?
Yeah.
Let me double check. Bond, he got a year. Hennessy got a year. Parker got a year. Devin White got a year. Burks, everybody else is a year.
Everyone else is on a 1-year deal. So of those who had to agree to, be happy for, all comes down to where you think they were in the league and what else was out there for them. Who's the best 1-year free agent that the Eagles have signed so far this year, Damo?
Well, I'm going to pick 2. I mean, Devin White, I got to believe, he knows he has something to prove. He was benched last year. If he can stay healthy, I think they got a real good linebacker.
You do?
Yeah.
Wow, I can't believe because I think Devin White signed before we had you on last week. I'm surprised we didn't get to it because I would remember this. Both John and I think Devin White stinks. I'm surprised you think he's a really good line. Did you just really use that really word? Really good linebacker?
Yeah. I mean, this is how you look at
he's
him.
A really good athlete.
How he likes guys who either are coming off a poor year and have something to prove, who have been hurt, like Matt Hennessy, and have something to prove. I mean, that's why all these guys sign these one-year deals. I just don't think Devin White, when you look back to 2020 and 2021, I mean, you don't suddenly stink that as much as he showed last year. I mean, and I think sometimes you have to come face to face with, playing that badly and being embarrassed and finding out that nobody wants you to make you kind of,
Well, I agree and I disagree with you, Damo. One, I think he's been a bad player except for the Super Bowl run. He was tremendous. It's one of the greatest anomalies in sports in my mind. He had this 3-game run in Tampa's. You could argue he's the MVP of the team. That's how dominant he was in the playoffs. But in the regular season, he's always been, he makes a splash play because of his athleticism, but he makes a ton of mistakes.
He does.
Always has. Overruns plays, not very instinctive, not very good in coverage despite the athleticism. But I also agree with you in that of those one-year contracts that Jody was mentioning, he's the best potential signing, the best lottery ticket. One, because he's going to get the opportunity to play.
Yeah.
The other guys, he's got to play. He's got to succeed. So he's got the best opportunity. And I did lighten up on him after I got to meet him. He seems like a smart kid, very intelligent. But boy, the film is ugly in Tampa.
You know what, though? He's in the right place right now. I mean, I think Vic Fangio is going to turn him around and bring him back to the player he was, and get rid of some of those undisciplined tendencies that he showed the last couple of years. I also think his blitzing ability is going to be a factor for them this year, because of they're not going to be as deep at edge rusher unless we see them unexpectedly bring back Hassan.
Yeah, we buried the lead. We got to get the Hassan.
So, I mean, they're going to need, his blitzing. They're going to need Zach Bond to become a sort of a factor as an edge rusher, things like that to make up for the lack of depth at edge on the outside.
Nolan Smith. I mean, that's got to be the guy on the edge. But what are your thoughts on the pushback of Reddick 2 weeks to April 1st? That $1 million bonus they have to pay out. They can't keep 3 edge rushers at plus $10 million, can they?
They can for this year. I mean, he's done a good job. Before a couple of days ago, I think he still had the 4th or 5th most effective cap space in the league.
But a bunch of contracts aren't filed yet. CJ's isn't in there. White's, a bunch of them aren't.
Well, most of them, as will Reddick, if they redo it, are going to be low next year. I mean,
that's true.
They don't have to worry about dealing with the fallout from Jalen's contract for a couple of years yet. They seem, with all these one-year contracts, they're clearly decided we're going to make a push this year if some of these guys can pan out. So I don't think it's the lost cause yet. I still think they're going to, I mean, Reddick wants to stay. I mean, Reddick's a Camden kid. I mean, aside from the money, he was never happier than he was here. And if I think they can, they're still close enough that I think they can get a deal done that will keep him around for at least another year.
Yeah, when I asked you the question about the 1-year deals, I understood what you said about Devin White. I think he's got a chance to play the most. Doesn't mean he's going to be the best player. He'll get the most snaps because the position right now is kind of open at best. Kind of like, I don't know, Nicholas Morrow when they got him last year. You knew he's going to play. Yeah. You didn't necessarily believe he's going to play all that well, but you knew he's going to play a lot. That's kind of the way I'm looking at Devin White at this time. All right, we haven't talked about the coaches basically much all week, and it's an ongoing question until they actually get out there in the field. They're doing stuff behind closed doors that nobody knows. The relationship between the new offensive coordinator and the head coach who forever said, it's my offense. And then on a dime, he turned and said, it's our offense. John, I think it was before Damo came on, or maybe it was while you were on, Damo, talking about a move that they made and looking to what Kellen Moore will mean. And how much of an effect do you think Kellen Moore's hiring has actually had on this offseason? Probably the biggest signing they've had is Saquon Barkley. Do you think that was Kellen Moore driven? Do you think that was an organizational decision? And here, Kellen, we're giving you more to play with, make the most of it. How much do you think the coaching changes have played into the Eagles' offseason decision so far here, Damo?
Well, I think I said this maybe last week. I'm not sure, but I mean, I think the defensive signings.
Yeah, well, Vic's different. You're right. Very good.
Had more input into those probably than Moore had into. I mean, Matt Hennessy was. Kellen Moore probably hadn't even watched any film of Matt Hennessy.
Matt Hennessy, come on.
Sterling may have, but probably did, but not. But the Barkley move, I think, had to have gone through more because you have to know how he's going to use him before you go out and sign him to a 3-year, $37 million contract. So I think that's the one move where Kellen Moore had some real impact. He believes that. I go back to with Kellen Moore and the running backs to 2021. I think Dak's big year before he got hurt and then had the 15 interceptions the year before. After that, he had a year where that offense was Dak threw like 37 touchdown passes, and his running backs were particularly Tony Pollard were big parts of the passing game. And I think that's what I go back to when I look at Barkley. I mean, he's gonna give them a more consistent inside presence. He's not going to bounce everything outside like DeAndre Swift had a tendency to do. But more importantly, I mean, because the passing game is what you win with in this league. He can block. He's never going to be the liability out there that Swift was. Barkley can be a factor along with Gainwell in the passing game if they can convince Jalen Hurts that they need to be.
P. Damo, make sure you follow Paul on Twitter. X does a tremendous job. 33rd team, JAKIBsports.com in season. Well, I'll end it with Saquon. One of my biggest concerns, and I think it's probably what Jody was talking about. I think this is another Howie move. Howie has evidently loved the player forever, and he's finally had the opportunity to get him. And you brought up Dallas and more of Tony Pollard, but obviously for many years Zeke was the guy, and Dallas is not only one of the best running backs in the NFL, but a 3-down back and a good pass protector, at least in the modern era. So some of the same things. And I was looking at Zeke the other day, 1,500 touches. That was the drop.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's preordained by the football gods. Guess where we are with Saquon Barkley? 1,500 touches.
Yeah.
I mean, normally the Eagles are very cognizant of that. What is it? Just overreaction to the collapse? Why the shift? Why the shift away from that analytical approach when it comes to tread on the tire with running backs?
Well, I mean, that's a big question, John. I mean, what he's got left, particularly when you throw in the ACL he had. I just got to believe they're not going to give him 20 plus carries a game every week. I think we're going to see Gainwell mixed in there. And again, there's a tendency when you throw a lot to a running back to not factor in those receptions as much as you do carries, because you're not getting hit by linebackers and defensive tackles as much. I don't think it's a 2-year. It's essentially a 2-year deal.
Yeah.
They can get rid of him in 2 years without much. So I mean, it's not a big investment. I was a little, obviously I was surprised to see it happen. I mean, I said there was 0% chance they would sign Barkley.
I'm with you.
It certainly is a departure from how he's thinking, and I think you're right. This is a Howie move that a guy like a lot of these guys he's liked since they were drafted, and is hoping they still have something left.
And I'll give you my at least quasi-educated guess as to what the Eagles' line of thinking was here. Now, please listen carefully. There are exceptions to the rule, like Christian McCaffrey. I'm not going to say that Saquon Barkley is Christian McCaffrey or equates to or is on a parallel with. I'm just saying the Eagles look at him like, yeah, Johnny's right. 1,500 carries, boom, the roof fell in on Zeke Elliott. So it has to happen the same exact way. I'm not going to say that either. There are some guys that are exceptions to the rule, and I think McCaffrey is one, and I believe they believe Saquon's another. Not that he's going to do exactly what McCaffrey did in San Francisco, but they believe the eventual drop-off isn't necessarily going to happen in the next 2 years. He's a different type player, different type athlete. That's my line of thinking as to why they decided to make the investment in Barkley.
Another thing to factor in here is, I mean, they're not done. I mean, we haven't even gotten to the draft yet.
No.
I mean, there's going to be another running back on this team.
Jamal Singleton was out looking at Aldrich Estime from Notre Dame yesterday. A big, powerful back. So you're right. There's going to be somebody else outside of Kenny Gainwell.
All right, so
outside of Boston Scott.
Let me put this to both you guys, because John and I haven't talked about this yet. I think we did last year, but top 30 visits. I think generally, just speaking generally, people overemphasize this. Number one, the Eagles have only 8 picks. They don't have 30. They got 8. And 8 is actually a decent number. Some teams have less than that. So you get 30 visits. You're not going to be using them all to draft players. But, oh, my God, he came in for a top 30 visit. Yes, so what? They're going to just do the math right now. There are going to be 22 guys who come in for a top 30 visit who will not be Philadelphia Eagles. I will guarantee you that. I guess how he could trade down and pick up an extra pick. At the minimum of 21 players who are going to come in who will not be Philadelphia Eagles. Oh, shoot, I shouldn't say that either because they'll be undrafted free agent. But a whole bunch of them, at least 2/3 of them, aren't going to be Philadelphia Eagles. Do people overplay the top 30 visits, Damo, or is it a truly significant tool that you circle and underline when you see a guy's coming in and go, oh, I got to remember that leading up to the draft because that means the Eagles are really interested, really going to be ready to pick that player. What's your read on top 30 visits for players coming into teams before the draft?
Well, with respect to I think it varies depending on the team, but with the Eagles, I mean, I've always paid attention to it because they seem to have a higher percentage of guys who were drafted that were were one of those 30 visits, which is why when I look at some of the offensive linemen they brought in early on their top 30 visits, you're pretty sure that one of them is going to get drafted by the Eagles in the first or second round. I pay attention with the Eagles because I think they have a tendency to draft the guys they bring in. And again, not all because they don't have 30.
Yeah,
right.
I was, I look at themes. I always say, Dama. So you mentioned they've already brought in a ton of offensive linemen, so they're taking an offensive lineman on those first 3 picks. I tend to look at it that way, but also, I think, and you remember the Darius Geis situation. I do think people assume when you hear so-and-so visited with so-and-so team, that's always, most people think of, oh, that's a positive. They must be interested. They might be ruling the guy out just as much. And Darius Geis would be the best example of that since he's yelling at Deuce Staley in the building, or allegedly, I should say. It could be negative just as much as positive, but you're right. They want to do homework on these particular players. So it's probably a good idea to keep their names in mind that if it does go positive, this guy might be a selection. But when the theme is, hey, there's a bunch of offensive linemen coming in, that's probably a good indication that the Eagles are going to take an offensive lineman over the first 2 days. No question about that.
All right, so I'm going to hold both you guys' feet to the fire. They got 8 picks as of right now, and we'll have to readjust on the fly come the 3-day draft period. But let's say they make 8 picks. How many out of the 8 are going to be guys who came in for a top 30 visit?
I'll go 4.
Yeah, I'll go about 50%. That's a good number. Yeah, I mean,
I would go 3, but even if you're right, 4. That's 50%. That's in some things in life. If you're a Major League Baseball hitter, you hit 50%, you're guaranteed to go in the Hall of Fame. If you're an NFL field goal kicker, you hit 50%, you're on the unemployment line. So it depends on how you look at it. 50% doesn't wow me at all.
If that's the over-under, 4 out of 8, I'd probably take the under, but I think that's a good place to set it out. The over-under.
Right. So for those who are going to get all geeked up about who they had in for top 30 visits,
remember,
it's going to be 50% at best.
You might like a guy and somebody else might take him.
Right.
I mean, somebody else might like him. Yeah,
I'm factoring that in when I'm going to take calls and guys are going to get on the stream here and go, yeah, but they had him in for a top 30 visit. So what?
I had Jerry Rice's kid in for a top, or they're having him in. I don't know if he got here yet. Does that mean they're taking Jerry Rice's kid?
They might not.
You don't take Jerry Rice. You never know.
Don't get exercised about it one way or the other. Damo, always a pleasure. You got any big weekend plans? You going to wear that shirt all weekend, do some barbecuing or anything like that?
Oh, it's too cold, man. It's going to rain. We're having the storm of the century
tomorrow. We're supposed to get flooding. So
yeah.
And by the way, isn't it like March something? What's it? I should know what goddamn date it is. March 22nd means we're speaking up on April. I'm freezing outside.
Oh, it's brutal.
Get the dog out this morning. I'm wearing a winter coat, a pullover hat, whatever. When the hell is winter leaving?
I love it. I don't want to cut the grass. So
listen to you.
I want it to stay like this forever.
Damo can't wait to get out and cut the grass in that shirt. He's lying to us, but he tells us the truth about his football beliefs, and we always appreciate it. Damo, we'll talk to you again next week. Have a great week, bud.
Thanks, bud.
Read him on the 33rd team and in season with us here on JAKIB Sports.
He's in for a top 30 visit, Damo.
Top 30 what? Hawaiian shirts, he and Andy Reid and 28 others.
Top 30 visits. Who else do we have? Let's see. Jerry Rice's kid. What do you know about Christian Mahogany from Boston College? He's a guard. Brandon Coleman from TCU, another guard.
Which, by the way, where are you getting these? Who are you trusting to give you this information?
A bunch of different places. A bunch of agents say it themselves. Sometimes the players say it. I don't have my list. I keep a list. Sometimes it comes from the players themselves on Instagram or Twitter or somewhere. Sometimes it comes from the Inquirer had a few.
Right.
You know, sometimes
you get your information wherever you get your information, which is good, which is smart. But again, how much stock do you actually put into it on the Eagles drafting the player come 1 month from now when the NFL draft comes?
I look, like I said, I look at the themes, and they brought in a crap load of offensive linemen, or are scheduled to bring in a crap load of offensive linemen. So I look at the themes more than the individuals.
That might actually be a better way to look at it, Johnny Mac. All right, Mac, quickie timeout, come back. I got one more thing I want to run by John before we get guest number 2 up, which would be the voice of the Eagles in Espanol. We haven't had our guy Ricardo up in months. Good to talk Eagles football with Ricardo coming up in the next 10 minutes here on Birds 365. Hey, Eagle fans, have I got a deal for you? How would you like to save significantly on your car insurance? Upwards of 40%. You can do so right now from one of JAKIB Sports' great partners. Here's what you need to do to get the ball rolling. Call managing partner Jim and or Fran and tell them you're a friend of both JAKIB Sports and Birds 365.
Hi, I'm Jim Muehlbronner, Managing Partner at Del Val Insurance Group. Give us a call. We're a local, knowledgeable agency, not an 800 number. Go Birds!
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy sports, and certainly the easiest when you're watching the NBA. And the NBA playoffs are almost here, and you can win money making picks. What are you waiting for? Sign up on UnderdogFantasy.com and use the promo code WIN. An Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN. Get ready for the NBA and get ready for the NBA playoffs. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer three major services. The first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News?
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES. Eagles.
Mac here with you on Birds 365. Thank you very much, Paul Domwich. He joins us each and every single Friday. We always look forward to his visits because he lends great insight. I look forward to talking to Ricardo coming up in just about 7 or 8 minutes. The voice of the Eagles, en Espanol, is going to jump in with us for a spot. I don't think we've had Ricky on in months, certainly since the season ended and free agency started. And yes, it's slowed to a trickle, John. And yesterday, the Paris Campbell, which we talked about at the top of the show, was, as compared to the rest of the National Football League, a pretty big signing just for
Paris
today.
Campbell, yeah. Woo.
That means the free agency market has slowed, and I think that's a fair way to describe it. It is slowed. But the one position that I think the Eagles, they certainly haven't, if you go roster proofing for the draft proofing the roster, they have not gotten up to speed on the offensive line, and more so inside than out. When Jason Kelce retires on you, even if you've got a ready to move in center to take his place in Cam Jurgens, that's nice, but then you got to replace Cam Jurgens because he was your starter. And Suopeta was a guy who got a chance to play inside there. And you watched him walk out the door to Tampa. They've lost more on the offensive line than they've added. I know Hennessy had a media spot. Were you there for that one?
Yeah. I was going to disagree a little bit because of those 1-year deals. Hennessy is, there's injury concerns. So there's a reason he's signing a 1-year deal. This guy was a starting center in the NFL and played at a high level. And then the injuries kind of took over. And he's played left guard as well. He can play right guard. So as an interior backup, if he's healthy, you're rock solid with Matt Hennessy. Now, again, there's concern. He hadn't played in basically a year and a half because of 2 different knee injuries. So the big concern is that. But when he was on the field in Atlanta, I think he was 7th PFF in the NFL as the starting center, 7th in the entire NFL. He can play.
Right,
Now,
but the Falcons can look up his ranking in PFF too, right?
Yeah.
And
Well,
then let him walk out the door to the Eagles on a 1-year make good deal. Maybe,
as I said,
maybe they've got more grasp of his physical issues than
well,
anyone else in
maybe
the
that's
National
what you're
Football
betting. You're betting on the physical aspect of it. I mean, yes, it's a big concern. Otherwise, he'd be a starting center somewhere if there weren't concerns over his health and where he is, or he'd be a starting left guard. He was a starting. He was a starting left guard last year. They moved him to left guard, and he got hurt at the end of training camp, and he was scheduled to be the starter, and missed the entire season. So I'm not trying to downplay the health part of it. I mean, best ability is availability. But, if you go back to Landon Dickerson coming out of college, that guy tore his ACL twice. There was a reason he was a second-round pick, and it wasn't because he should have been. He should have been a first-round pick, but there were significant injury concerns, and he's come to the NFL, and he's largely stayed healthy. And the Eagles have a Pro Bowl player who's now the highest paid guard in the history of football. So is it a risk? Yes. But of the 1 year players we were talking about with Damo, and he went Devin White because he's the one who's penciled in for the biggest role, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
The best football player they got is probably Matt Hennessy and those 1 year deals. Again, plenty of red flags from an injury standpoint. But if it works, and I think you're pretty set for an interior backup. Now, they're also going to draft, I believe, an interior player. As we were talking about the top 30 visits and where they've been. So many of the guys they brought in, Christian Mahogany, as I said, from Boston College, Brandon Coleman, Cooper Beebe. These are all interior guys. So, they're going to draft one as well. But Hennessy is a guy that interests me because he can play a little bit if he's healthy.
Understood. His talent is there. Is he going to be able to get out on the field? I get that. But I'm talking about quantity versus quality. They lost Kelsey. They lost Opeta. They lost Driscoll. They've added Hennessy. That's 3-1. That's not an even swap out. And no matter how good Matt Hennessy is, I'm going to go really far out here on a limb, John. Matt Hennessy, healthy for all 17 games, will not be Travis Kelce next year. I don't care what his upside is. Don't care what PFF grade they slapped on him. He's not going to be Jason Kelce next year, even if he's not the guy. You're replacing Kelce. You're moving your right guard over to your center position. There's going to be a drop-off. And then you have to replace the 2 backup guys you had, both of which you played last year. And to this point, the Eagles have not done that. So that's why I'm saying the draft proofing the roster has not reached the offensive line just yet, comparing losses to new signees.
Yeah, well, numbers wise, you're right, obviously. But I think from a standpoint, I don't think draft proofing is mainly about numbers because you're looking for, thinking about the 53. So you're thinking about, all right, how many do you dress on game day? Sometimes it's 7, sometimes it's 8. You need an interior backup and a swing tackle, which is why I said swing tackle they haven't addressed unless they the 3 areas in my estimation they hadn't addressed were slot corner, which they did when they signed I always forget that kid's name. I got to get that down, Jody. Tyler Hall.
How about your boy Fred Johnson you told me about yesterday, the biggest guy in the team?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Swing tackle material.
I was getting to Fred. Tyler Hall was the slot they addressed. Paris Campbell, obviously the potential wide receiver 3. Now that's draft proofing. That just means if you're in the draft, you don't feel the necessity to take a position, even if it doesn't match up with your board and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, maybe they believe in Fred more. They signed him to a 2-year deal. I mentioned that yesterday. They ripped up his futures deal. Maybe they believe he's that guy. And that's what I was getting to. But, there's no proven aspect. Like Hennessy has played at a high level, even though it was a while ago. He's played. Fred played a little bit, but certainly not enough to where you can get, and that was a couple of years ago, not where you can get a good feel for what he would be as an NFL player. And that was, 2020 maybe in Cincinnati. He's an older guy. People don't realize he's been around for a while. He started 8 games, and maybe they believe in him, but there's no proven aspect to me. That's the difference between Hennessy and Fred. But maybe they believe in him.
But we're quoting the 40-yard time that Paris Campbell ran back in 2019 in the draft. So sometimes we go back 4 years to look at. Yeah, I like you and I said earlier, for those of you just streaming, and John and I both agreed, 5 years ago in the NFL is a lifetime. Things move very quickly in the National Football League. So Fred Johnson got snaps in 2020. Okay, fine. I'm not going to base a decision.
And not a lot either. He's never, he started 8 games. Like Hennessy started a full NFL season at center 1 year, and then was scheduled to be a starting. He's played quite a bit. He's got 20 some odd starts in the NFL. Fred's got 8, and they were a while ago. So that's a big difference.
Like I said, that's an area where I don't think the Eagles have completed draft proofing their roster yet. They still need numbers and bodies on the offensive line, and the pickings are getting slim on the free agent market. He's Johnny Mac. I'm Johnny Mac. Mac and Mac ready to talk. En Espanol, Los Eagles, with Ricky Ricardo. He joins us next here on Birds 365.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today, and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy sports, and certainly the easiest when you're watching the NBA. And the NBA playoffs are almost here, and you can win money making picks. What are you waiting for? Sign up on UnderdogFantasy.com and use the promo code WIN. An Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN. Get ready for the NBA and get ready for the NBA playoffs. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at JAKIB. At DryTech, we offer three major services, the first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News.
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES. Eagles.
Appreciate you jumping in here on Birds 365. Thanks for joining the stream since you tuned in for Mac and Mac and got Ricky Ricardo, the voice of the Eagles in Espanol. I suggest you hit the like button, even if you don't like me. That's fine. You should like Ricky Ricardo because A, he's great at what he does, and B, he's a good guy. Hello, Ricardo.
Morning, gentlemen.
Ricky, good to see you, buddy. Gearing up for baseball too. I gotta believe.
That's why.
Well,
I figured once the baseball season started, we had no chance to get him on.
No shot.
So get him on before baseball gets going.
Yeah.
Mets, Yankees today. Phillies, Yankees tomorrow. Then we'll pack on Sunday and get ready to go next. Actually, we have to go to Mexico City.
Wow.
Yankees are playing the Diablos Rojos.
Diablos, give me a rolled R. I can't roll my R's, Ricky.
Los Diablos Rojos de Mexico.
Yeah, I can't roll my R's.
Then from Diablos Rojos de Mexico, we go to Houston and open up against the Astros.
You know, my 8 years of Spanish tells me that means Red Devils.
Yes,
Red Devils.
You are correct.
That's how good I am, Ricky.
All right, and there will be a devil on the mound, or at least that's what Major League Baseball thinks because he hasn't gotten a job against the Yankees. You're going to see Trevor Bauer, correct?
Yes, matter of fact, you are correct. Yeah,
he's pitching for the Mexican team. He's trying to pull out all the stops to get back in baseball, and it hasn't happened. Read between the lines, Trevor. You're not getting back into Major League Baseball. That's just
I disagree. I think somebody.
You think somebody's going to give him a job? Your Yankees will be the team to step up and go, yeah, we'll bring on Trevor Bauer.
With that kind of talent, as hard as he's throwing in the game against the Dodgers last week with another foreign squad, he looked great. Somebody's going to throw him a lifeline. You watch.
Yeah, the punt god, he finally got a job.
Yeah, there you go.
Talent.
Domingo Germán got a job.
Yeah, how about that? Yeah.
Yeah, no truth to the rumor that Ricky and Domingo went out and had a couple of good times along the way.
No,
we'll keep that under wraps. All right, Ricardo, we have not had you on since free agency started.
Yes,
the Eagles have had three major signings. Anybody who's on a one-year deal, some got more than others. Some we still don't know how much they got. Devin White is upwards of $7 million, but we don't know how much incentive earning he's going to need to get the $7 million. But the three major signings Eagles had, 3-year contracts, Saquon, Bryce Huff, CJ. Give me your order of successful signing, which will of course be determined by how they play, but your projection as to for the kind of money that the Eagles laid out for them when we evaluated at the end of the year, who will be the most successful signing out of those three? Put the three in order for me.
I think number one, Saquon. I think Saquon is going to be a huge Eagle. I really do. I think he comes here with a chip on his shoulder. He's out to prove people wrong about. Look, he took a pounding, as you know, in the New York media about why he was taken second overall. You know, as good as he was, unfortunately got injured. But I think he's coming to this Eagle team on a mission. So to answer your question, I'm going to go Saquon 1. I'm going to go Gardner Johnson 2 because Bryce Huff, you know, as good a pass rusher as he is, the numbers don't grade out much on anything else as far as the defense is concerned. It's anything having to do, Jody, you and I are both lifelong Jet fans. A lot of things that are successful with the Jets over the years have been smoke and mirrors. So I'm not 100% convinced on Bryce Huff. So for this particular question, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. I'm going to go Saquon, who I really think is going to be big for the Eagles. I'm going to go CJ 2 and Huff 3rd. But I'm not under. I mean, I watched plenty of Devin White, and I remember when he got drafted. I believe it was the same draft with Daniel Jones. Am I correct?
That sounds right.
Yeah, and when he was not taken by the Giants, and it was, thought to be.
Yeah, you're right.
It was thought to be a steal by the Tampa Bay Bucks, and then the way he played during the Brady years in Tampa, if he can just get back to form, if he plays in Philadelphia the way he did a couple of years ago at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they may have a steal. The biggest steal of the group may be Devin White.
Yeah, I can't go that far, Ricky. You're right. Devin White, I always talk about when the Bucks won the Super Bowl, he might have been the MVP of the team during the playoffs. He was
correct.
His 3 games in the playoffs are unbelievable. I can't speak highly enough. In the regular season, he's been a disappointment. And by and large, the whole time, I think there's this assumption because he was named All-Pro in 2020, second team All-Pro. That was about his 9 sacks. But he made so many mistakes. The Eagles aren't going to blitz. They're a Vic Fangio defense. They don't blitz, so they're not going to take advantage of what he does well. And the contract, let's be honest. If you're the number 5 pick in the draft, and that's what Devin White was when the Giants took Daniel Jones at, I believe, number 6, and you're out of the first year out of your rookie deal, you get 1 year and $4 million. That's not a good sign, Ricky. That's the whole NFL. That's not just the Eagles. That's the whole NFL saying, you know what? Not enough here.
I'm going to cling my hopes on Devin White. We've been so bad at linebacker.
Well, that's true. That's part of it. Yeah, that's part of it.
This is Dick Butkus upgrade compared to what we've had there. So.
But I remember some people saying that about Nicholas Morrow last year. Hey, can't be worse than what we. No, I need to see it with my own 2 eyes with Devin White. Not a fan of his, but I'm with you. You and I see it exactly the same. Really like the Barkley signing. Excited about the CJ signing. Rolling the dice on Mr. Huff at $51 million. 2 out of the 3 Eagle big signings I'm very much on board with. I think Barkley's going to make a big difference. And the thing that I gave Howie credit for on the CJ thing, which maybe it's because I've been around games, not just football, but at Major League Baseball and like forever. There are some executives / general managers that dig their feet in. When they make a call on a player, they never change their opinion. Unfortunately, I think that's kind of why Kenny Pickett is here. Howie never changed his opinion on him, even though he had 2 years of less than stellar play in Pittsburgh. But they made a mistake when they let CJ walk out the door. Mm-hmm. And lesser general managers would go, no, we made a call on him. We can't go back. We can't revisit that. They revisited it. They brought him back in. He's a major upgrade. He's a playmaker, something they needed badly at that position. I give a ton of credit to Howie Roseman for that signing.
I thought Gardner Johnson gave the defense a level of swagger. That season, that defense had a little something to them. They had a little attitude going. And I thought Gardner Johnson was a big component of that. When you succeed on defense, especially in the secondary in the National Football League, there's so much back and forth going on. And Gardner Johnson was the linchpin. He was a big piece of the moxie, per se, that swagger that defense had that year. I welcome him back. Absolutely.
By the way, just to button up the Devin White thing, I've been meaning to say this, so I'm going to say it with you guys. So he played against Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, and Patrick Mahomes. That's who the Bucs beat on the way to the Super Bowl. 11 tackles, 1 pass breakup, 1 forced fumble, and an interception of Drew Brees. That's what he did against the Saints. In the NFC Championship game against Aaron Rodgers, 15 tackles, recovered a fumble as the Bucs advanced to the Super Bowl. And in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, 12 tackles, 2 of them for loss, and the game-sealing interception of Patrick Mahomes. That was his run in route to the Super. It was unbelievable. It's
That's
one
the
of
guy
the great,
I want.
he's
That's
one of
the guy I'm looking for.
Yeah. Now, if you can do that, you have Dick Butkus. Unfortunately, Jody and I have been talking about Ricky. That was after the 2020 season. That's an eternity in the NFL.
No,
So
right.
what are you getting? You getting that guy, or are you getting the guy who the whole league showed up and said, $4 million? We're not going to give you that.
Yeah,
It's
there's got to be a happy medium
disconnect.
somewhere in between. I'll settle for that.
Yeah. With CJ, I'm with you, man. They missed his playmaking. And you saw it when he was here. That guy just made plays. And his energy when he's on the field, he's got that, as you mentioned, the swagger you both mentioned. He'll talk some trash. Boy, to me, he's impactful to this team. If he can get back to what he was, or even close to what he was, I think that's going to make a huge difference on the Eagles defense. I'm with you with CJ Gardner-Johnson. And Bryce Hupp, man, that's the guy the Eagles got to get right. You know, Saquon Barkley is, and what he's been able to do, he's a good player. The question is how impactful. You know CJ's a good player. Bryce Hupp's the projection. $17 million a year projection. That's the one Howie's got to get right. If I phrase it that way, you agree with that aspect of it. That's the one he has to get right.
I agree there. That's the risk. That's the one where he's tossing his reputation into the middle of the ring. Let's see how this works out.
Yeah.
And would it be unfair, this is for both you guys, to compare Bryce Huff in these next 2 years, because you got to believe you're getting 2 years, not going to be, even though, well, no, I compared him to, I don't know if you've heard this, Ricky, I compared him to Jason Babin. Because Babin came in, had that unbelievable first 18 sacks, second team All-Pro. He was unbelievable. And then by midseason the year after, they just couldn't stand him anymore. They jettisoned his ass in the middle of the season. So it was peak and valley. And the peak was as high as you get, and the valley was as low as you get. I'm not saying that I expect Bryce Huff to be released by midseason in the second year. I'm just saying I think he could have a really good first year and then come back down to earth. Not as drastic. Would it be fair to compare Bryce Huff's first 2 years to Haason Reddick's first 2 years here in Philadelphia and
That's
expect
fair.
the same type of production? Because the money is actually more for Huff because he got 17 per and Haason only got 15 per. Would that be setting the bar too high for Bryce Huff?
No, that's exactly where I've been going in my mind with him. So no, that's absolutely fair. I just want to know now what's going to happen with Reddick. Well, what are they going to do with Sweat and Reddick? I have no idea because I thought they'd be dealt by now.
Well, Sweat, they reworked the contract, so he's going to be back. So the question is now Haason Reddick, Ricky. Now, right now, he's scheduled to play for about $15 million a year. No guaranteed money left on the contract. NFL players hate that. The Eagles don't like the contract from the fact that it's $21 million against the cap. There's no way Haason Reddick comes back and plays for less than Bryce Huff. Do you see any way that happens? No. Something's got to be worked out.
Yeah.
So either way, I mean, you could say what you want, and people, fans obviously know he's a good player and want him to play, but there's not many guys who would say, "All right, you're bringing in Bryce Huff. I'm gonna play for less than him." Can you blame Haason Reddick for not wanting to do that?
No, I can't. No, I can't. There's got to be a resolution to the Reddick situation sooner than later. We'll see how it all gets worked out. Is it safe to say then that Paris Campbell becomes Quez Watkins?
Please,
right now it is.
Please, no. We're hoping for better. I don't know about you. I don't know about
Devontae Parker will play the role of Julio Jones.
Yes.
Here's how I would answer your question, Ricky, and thank you for asking it. The Eagles' wide receiver 3 is yet to join the roster. I think that is absolutely a position they will be looking to draft, and or maybe even a draft day trade. 2 years ago, Howie Roseman made a pretty good wide receiver draft day trade, I'm not suggesting he's going to get A.J. Brown part due, but could be an upgrade at wide receiver 3 via trade. I don't think the third wide receiver is on the Eagle team yet.
From your lips to God's ears, because what a drop off there from the from the 2 starters to Paris Campbell and Devontae Parker. Yeah. So
yeah, but you're going to have.
I
mean, when you have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, you're going to have a pretty significant drop off to wide receiver 3, no matter who it is. Last year it was Quez Watkins or Olamide Zaccheaus. This year, if it's Paris Campbell, I agree with Jody. We still got the draft, and the Eagles are going to try to upgrade the position. But if they can't, Paris Campbell's probably going to be the guy. Is that good enough? He hasn't proven to be good enough. Certainly with the New York Giants. But, it's funny. We do put into context when we talk about Saquon Barkley and say, well, he was playing with a poor offensive line. He was playing with a poor quarterback. All true. But we don't give that same dispensation to Paris Campbell or even Daniel Jones, who's still on the Giants. Is that fair? Unfair? Do you think we're bending over backwards to make excuses for Saquon Barkley as opposed to other players who had to deal with the same situation with the New York Giants?
Yeah, I see your point here, Mac. The Giant offensive line, which by the way has a bunch of high draft picks.
Yeah.
It didn't. I think it's more a function of the dysfunction there. That we look at it from a distance and say, well, both sides have number 1 picks, if I'm not mistaken, right? They have a lot.
Thomas is good. Andrew Thomas is a very good player. Evan Neal hasn't.
Was a bust.
Yeah. Has been a bust. Yeah.
So when you look at what they've invested draft capital wise into that offensive line, I think we use that as kind of a learning curve here, or a grading curve for the rest of the guys that we analyze coming away from the Giants. So you that's a fair point.
All right, who will the Eagles miss more this year? Assuming one of them doesn't resign here, Jack Stoll or Olamide Zaccheaus?
Who will they miss more? I tell you what. When Dallas Goedert was out, I thought Jack Stoll did a look. Is he Goedert? No, he's not the receiver, obviously. But I thought Stoll did layman's work and held down the position pretty well when Goedert was out. Zaccheaus, I'm trying to remember how many times I even, had a highlight of any kind of energy in my calls with Zaccheaus. There was a couple of plays during
one
the season.
touchdown.
More than Quez.
Yeah, Jalen extended the play, made a nice catch in the back of the end zone.
I do remember.
Yeah.
But I just thought from a grunt work point of view, from a guy that kind of kept it together while Goedert was out for those weeks, I thought Stoll, because I thought Alberto, as we call him on the Spanish podcast,
yeah. Albert Ogwegmanon. I got to get that in. Yeah.
Okay. So I was expecting a lot more from Alberto and got nothing from him. And I thought Stoll did a heck of a job holding it down for Dallas Goedert. So I'm going to go. I think they'll miss Stoll, and he's going to the Giants.
Yeah, Giants. Yeah, they traded him for Saquon, essentially. No, I'm joking.
And we kept Alberto.
You kept. That's one of the. Maybe it shouldn't have been a surprise because how he traded, basically draft capital for him. And anytime he trades for somebody, he's going to give him at least the opportunity to prove that Howie was right. Now you don't have Jack Stoll, and he is with the Giants. So is Ricardo comfortable with Grant Calcaterra and Albert O as a potential backup tight end? Because guess what? Last couple seasons, the way Dallas Goedert plays in a very violent way, susceptible to getting injured. He's gotten injured both of the last 2 seasons. You might surmise you're going to need somebody else for at least 2 or 3 games.
Yeah, well, Calcaterra is talented. I'm hoping that Albert O turns into something, but that's another position that I can see them looking to upgrade somewhere in the draft.
All right, since we're talking about which one of you, does it actually change in Spanish, the pronunciation of Albert O's last name? John said it. Let's hear you say it, Ricky.
No, we just keep it Alberto.
You don't even go last name. All right, good on you. Speaking of tough last names, and I'll let John pronounce his last name, what's the chance that the Eagles reach out for Big V for a little offensive line depth? He's a free agent, has not signed yet, certainly a graduate of Stoutland University, and didn't begrudge him when he signed with the Lions because they paid him good money to go there. Any chance Big V, who would be who, John?
Halapulibati Vaitai. Now, it's not his last name. His last name's easy. It's the first name. Halapulibati Vaitai. Yeah.
Okay, Vaitai.
Big V was a good Eagle. I thought he was a very good soldier.
Started in the Super Bowl. Left tackle, baby.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'd welcome Big V back. As long as, I didn't follow really his injury issues, if he had any while he was away, but if he's a healthy player, I'd welcome him back. I thought he was a heck of a performer. And yes, Halapulibati Vaitai.
Very good.
That was pretty easy to, we can take that one on the Spanish broadcast pretty easily as compared to Alberto.
You guys are both better than me because I'd botch it for sure. Give you guys props for that one. And yeah, why not? I'm talking about, and I don't know who he's talking to right now. He's probably, you think he's better than a veteran minimum guy in the open market, John?
Probably not at this stage. I mean, we're talking about, 2017 season when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. So, I mean, again, we've been talking about that theme. NFL moves fast. So that was a long time ago. And God bless Big B. I mean, he worked and made himself in a good player. He got a big deal from Detroit in free agency. But yeah, I think at this stage, especially, you know how this works, Jody and Ricky. I mean, at this stage of free agency, you're not getting big deals anymore.
Right.
So you are where you are if you're still out there.
So what would you prioritize, Ricky and John? A young guy like, I don't know, a Hennessy who's been injury prone but still has upside. If he stays healthy, damn, he could be really good. Or a veteran savvy guy who knows how to play in your system. Yeah, he's old, and yeah, he's probably going to break down just as good a chance as a guy like Hennessy. Which would be your preference since we're talking about offensive line depth, which the Eagles haven't gotten in free agency yet? Which would you prefer if you were the Eagles, Ricky?
I'd take Vaitai. I'd take the veteran. I would. I think this is a win-now team. Let's get ready to go right now. We're not looking 2 years down the road. This is a team that wants to come back and at least win this division and get back into the playoffs that way. I'd go with the veteran. Now, I am also not poo-pooing. And I'll hear, John's answer on that question, but I'm also not poo-pooing completely the possible return of Taylor Swift's brother-in-law to this group also. So.
Oh, wow. I'm trying to, so we're thinking now, Jason Kelsey coming back.
You and Groats are the two that are clinging to that, right, John? He still believes Kelsey's coming back. Was it Groats who said that?
Probably. Groats has got Landon Dickerson moving the center, and he's got Kelsey coming. How many centers you need? You got Cam Jurgen.
or was that Martin who said that? I get my Delaware guys confused. You're not the only one who suggested that Kelsey could be coming back. Zero. There's 0% chance that Jason returns.
Yeah, he's having too much fun. I think he got Eagles fans excited by his comments about Saquon Barkley, and that if he knew completely, and he kind of knew that the Eagles were going after him, maybe he'd want to come back. But now, from Jason's perspective, he's just beaten up, man. He doesn't want to do it. By the way, you see the podcast of him talking about Aaron Donald, him and Travis. That's tremendous. You should check their podcast if you get to see it, because the respect that guy gets around the NFL, Aaron Donald, it's like few players in history. But
now, I'm glad you brought that up. because I heard a 30-minute diatribe yesterday on NFL Network. I was driving back from training, spring training, and they put him on a level with Reggie White and Lawrence Taylor.
Yeah. He's one of the greatest defensive players of all time. Of all time.
You're on this boat too?
Oh
yeah, so am I, Rick.
Oh yeah.
Because, and I'll tell you why. It's easier to stand out as a defensive end in a 4-3. It's easier to stand out as an outside linebacker in a 4-3. It's tougher to stand out as a defensive tackle in the National Football League. Did he have as big an impact as either Reggie White or Lawrence Taylor? No. But if you prorate it because of the position that he played, and it's tougher to do from the defensive tackle position, yeah, I think he's on a level with those two guys.
I'll just paraphrase what Jason said, because the Eagles are one of the maybe the only team that Aaron Donald has ever played against that never let up a sack against Aaron Donald. Never. And Jason Kelce said, we literally is the only player since he's been here, and Jason has been there a long time, only player. We double or triple teamed him on every single play. And he even brought up the one time he hid well, and Kelce didn't know he was on the field, and he didn't slide protection to Aaron Donald, and Dickerson was like panicking. We're not sliding to 99. What are we doing? And panicking. Yeah. I mean, when other players talk about the way they talk about Aaron Donald, and they all do, but going back, I had the discussion with Brandon Brooks, who at the time was the best. And I would always go, Ricky, I'd be in the locker room when it was time for all pros, and I would talk to different players about who I should vote for the all pro team. And I asked one year, I asked Brandon Brooks, I know, and I said it, I prefaced it by saying, I know Donald, who's the second best defensive tackle. And Brandon was like, nobody's close.
No one.
Nobody's close. Number 2 is not close. And he couldn't even get to number 2 because he wouldn't stop talking about Aaron Donald. It's pretty amazing. Just how dominant he's been, how good he's been. And I hate to compare eras. So what I try to do is dominance in your era, and Reggie was phenomenal and LT was tremendous. But Aaron Donald, every bit as dominant in his era as they were in their era.
I guess I'm guilty. The recency bias with me is that against the Eagles, which is when I've seen him up close live, it's been against the Eagles. The Eagles basically controlled him. As you mentioned, there have been no sacks. So,
yeah,
that's the lasting impression. I'd have to go back and take a look at the numbers and watch some of the other highlights. But against the Birds, anyway, we kept him under control.
Numbers were scary good against everybody else. Ricky, always a pleasure, bud. We know you're going to be busy with baseball. Maybe if you got a day off at some point, I'll notice it on the schedule. Hey, I can get Ricardo up.
Absolutely. I'll wake up for you guys. We have, as I mentioned today, the Battle of New York. It's raining all over Florida today, so I don't think anybody's really going to play.
Okay.
Because it's downpours. But then the Phillies and the Yankees tomorrow afternoon, and then we leave for Mexico City. So a fun few days ahead.
The Red Devils. Enjoy the Red Devils.
I will.
Keep an eye out for Trevor Bauer, and you don't get clipped by his
Yankees need some pitching. Maybe they get panicked enough to take a chance.
We'll see.
Blackballed. He has been. Just saying. I'll bet against Trevor Bauer being on a roster. Ricky, always a pleasure, buddy. Muchas gracias, amigo.
Anytime, fellas.
Ricky Ricardo, voice of the Eagles, and Espanol here with us on Birds 365. All right, come back. We'll officially put a bow on the show. Stay right there.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy sports, and certainly the easiest when you're watching the NBA. And the NBA playoffs are almost here, and you can win money making picks. What are you waiting for? Sign up on UnderdogFantasy.com and use the promo code WIN. An Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN. Get ready for the NBA and get ready for the NBA playoffs. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer three major services, the first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
For the big story on Action News,
search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
All right, Mac and Mac, you kept on a good bird 365. Thanks everybody who streamed in. If you streamed in late, go back and watch. Damo was great. If you got in here in the last 10 minutes, Ricky was great. Go back. You can watch it. That's the beauty of the show. If you miss something, like something stupid that either McDonald or McMullen will say, you go back and find it. It's always there for you.
It's always there, unfortunately, for the stupid comments.
We try and limit those, but they sneak out every once in a while. All right, I give you one last chance to make a stupid comment, John. Crystal ball time for me. If we use Oren Burks as the barometer, the level of signing of Oren Burks, by the time we get back here Monday, will the Eagles have signed someone that is a bigger deal than Oren Burks?
I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no.
I fear you're right. I hope you're wrong, but I fear you're right because I'd love to have something to sink our teeth into on Monday. I'm not sure it's happening.
Yeah, I know people are still want some splashy and other safety.
Justin Simmons, come on, he's better than Oren Burks. Isn't that happening this weekend?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I don't think so. I still think he's got a market. We'll see though, as as time goes on, everything dries up, and you never say never. But it'll still be a better deal than Oren Burks, obviously.
That's why I put him out there.
Yeah.
Of course, he's going to be bigger, and I think he's someone the Eagles should be still pursuing. But we'll see. You'll be back here on Monday. I'll be back here on Monday. You gonna not make a promise? Pinky swear right now you'll be here Monday, John McMullen?
Yeah, pinky swear. I wish I was at the NFL meetings, but Jeff Kerr's going to be there, and he says he's going to be on the show, so we'll get live updates.
We'll lock that one in before Monday rolls around. Have a great weekend, everybody. You got Bill Colarulo coming up next with the Power Hour. You get McMullen and McDonald back in 2 and 2 days over the weekend, that is.
You've been listening to Birds 365. the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate, inside the locker room, and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.